Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 21 of BB23, and welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Night 21. We've completed 3 weeks inside the house for this season, and yet, do y'all realize we still have 65 days or so left to go? And Big Brother is a marathon game rather than a sprint. As long as it seems like we've been watching these house guests, we still have a long way to go. But what an exciting 3 weeks it's been, right? All right, so a quick refresher on what's been happening or where we're at with the week. Brent and Brittany are still on the block, and Brent is still going home on Thursday. So there you go for the refresher. Now, one thing I did want to point out, an observation, the backyard was open still yesterday, which really is a bit of a surprise. Normally, you don't have the yard on a Tuesday. The house guests have already been chased inside. Everything's locked down as they start building the set for the HOH competition that'll be taking place tomorrow. The fact that they still had the backyard, that's telling me that whatever kind of competition they're setting up is not a complicated setup. I think there's been talk that this could be the endurance competition. Again, we heard some of that last week also, that this could be the endurance. Maybe, but again, the fact the backyard's still open just tells me it's going to be a fairly simple setup. So maybe I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be fun to watch Thursday and see what happens. So let's talk about some of the conversations that took place. Nothing earth-shattering, no huge changes going on, just a lot of planning for the next week. What happens if so-and-so wins HOH? Who would be the targets and all of that? A lot of what ifs, 95% of which won't ever come to fruition, but we'll talk about a few of them anyway, because there were some important things to consider as well as people start solidifying some of these relationships and turning on others. So let's talk about in the poker room upstairs. We've got Alyssa and Christian and Xavier talking. This is kind of late yesterday afternoon. Alyssa says she's been talking to Derek F, and it sounds like she and the rest of Team Kings are proposing that they work with Team Jokers this week, that they not go after each other. They let, basically, the idea is let Jokers maybe go after team one of the other teams instead. We've heard a lot of that. Team Queens is wanting the Jokers to go after the Kings. The Team Kings are wanting the Jokers to go after Team Aces, perhaps. So it's pretty interesting how everyone's trying to make deals right now. But basically, Alyssa's saying they won't target the Jokers if the Jokers don't target the Kings. They know that the Kings are a big target this week because there's 4 of them left in the house. So they're trying to cover their bases as best they can. Alyssa is saying that she would just as soon throw the HOH if given the chance. She'd love to just throw it to Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth's part of the Kings as well, so they would still all have their safety. And that way, Alyssa doesn't get any blood on her hands for this coming up week. Alyssa is talking a little bit about targets. Alyssa says she would love to get Hannah out because she thinks that Whitney is more likely to work with the Kings going forward, whereas Whitney just hasn't talked any game with Alyssa, that she holds her cards closer to the vest, and she thinks that Hannah is just an incredibly smart player, and that worries her quite a bit. She also called Hannah a bit sketchy. And so as a result, Alyssa thinks that Hannah may be the better one to go over Whitney. Now, here's what's funny. She also mentions that she thinks that Hannah may be more willing to take out Alyssa because Hannah likes Christian, and that she'd love to get Alyssa out of the picture so she can spend a little bit more time with Christian. So there's some strategy reasons why she'd like to see Hannah gone. There's maybe some personal reasons why she'd like to see Hannah gone as well. Alyssa has a plan. She's saying, look, Whitney also is fine with Hannah being gone. I tell you what, Team Aces, that team does not support each other at all, do they? They're ready to let each other go at the drop of a dime. But Alyssa's saying Whitney'd be fine with Hannah being gone. So Alyssa's got a plan of saying, what if we put up Whitney and Alyssa together on the block and just tell Whitney, say, look, you've got to go along with this. We're going to send Hannah out, which you said you're fine with, and we're going to let you work with us, which we know you want to do, but you got to play along and go up on the block as a pawn in exchange for that agreement to work together. So that's her idea. Now, we did see earlier and later as well, Xavier talking to the cameras And Xavier basically saying, look, I got to get the target back onto Whitney and away from Hannah because I want to protect Hannah since she is kind of an honorary member of the Cookout Alliance. I don't want Hannah being the target, so I'm going to have to try to shift it back to Whitney. Now, obviously, Xavier isn't saying that when he's talking to Christian and Alyssa, who, again, are focused on maybe wanting Hannah gone. But we know that Xavier's got a slightly different idea. All right, we do have Azza and Xavier in the poker room later, and Azza saying it's important to target a team that has no Cookout members, which I think she's talking about the Aces, even though the Aces do have Hannah, but I guess Azza is considering Hannah more an associate member or a junior member as compared to everyone else that's in the Cookout Alliance. Because she's saying we got to go after a team that doesn't have any Cookout members. And Xavier is saying, look, no one from the Jokers is going to be targeted this week, Azza. You should be good. And Brittany, I know you're worried about Brittany. Brittany should be as well, be good as well. So Joker should be fine this week. So he's trying to calm Azza down a little bit during this conversation. We do have some conversations with Brent that are always fun to listen in on. Brent is telling Whitney in the backyard that Alyssa has been acting very weird around him. And he says he thinks it's probably because he told her to stay off of him, stay away from him so people wouldn't catch on that they're working together. And he feels like maybe she's taking it personally that he said stay away from her for a little while and that he doesn't want her all over him. And he thinks that she's just upset about that she's taking it very personally that she can't hang around with him. And that's why she's acting weird. Or maybe it's because she's getting ready to stab him in the back with the vote on Thursday, right? Yeah, but Brent assumes it's because she's a little upset that she can't hang around with him. So we have that. We do have some bit of the overnights last night. We had the big blue couch conversations and some games of Mafia in the living room with most of the house guests playing that game. We've got a quick conversation, very quick, because Brent came in at one point. But Brittany's talking to Azza. Saying that Christian came to her saying, hey, who are you going to target if you're the HOH? And Brittany basically was saying, it's funny that Christian is worried about me going after him, that he's coming in and trying to make sure that I'm not targeting him. And she said, it's just funny that he's so worried about me right now. But she mentions to Azza a desire. She doesn't want Christian gone. She's already said she likes Christian, right? And so, but Christian's worried about it, so he's trying to check. She actually tells Azza, says, look, if we could get Alyssa out of the house, then it's going to be a little bit easier for us to work with Christian going forward. So is Brittany looking at sending possibly Alyssa out the door for strategic reasons, or because she maybe would like to spend a little more time with Christian? Well, it could be a little bit of both. You know how those kind of things go. We have more Brentisms going on. Brent's meeting with his team aces. He's saying that if he goes home this week, he has to have a suspicion, right? He has to be thinking that's a possibility. You wouldn't know from listening to him most of the time, but he does say if he does go home this week, that Team Aces needs to work with Kyland. They need to be loyal to the Mafia, and they need to go after Xavier and Christian. That those would be the number 1, number 2 targets, I guess, to go after if Brent is betrayed this week and goes home. Sorry, my camera's kind of acting a little out of focus. Sorry, guys. We'll figure it out later. All right. Brent does say that he thinks that the Aces are the tightest team in the house. How shocked is he going to be when he learns how far from the truth that is, that everyone basically threw HOHs just to make sure he went home. But he's saying, y'all guys, us guys, Team Aces, we are the absolute tightest in the entire house. Which I thought was pretty funny. He's also saying that Brittany's doing okay this week because she is convinced that Brent is going to go home in a landslide vote. He says, she thinks I'm going home. It's going to be a landslide. That's why she's so good. But of course, we know what the truth is, right? Yeah, we know what the truth is. We've got Claire and Tiffany talking. Claire is talking about how many people Kyland has. And Claire's saying, look, we can't target Kyland right now, but we can weaken him. And she said, maybe we target Derek X. And then later the conversation is maybe we go after Sarah Beth instead. aren't Tiffany and Claire part of the brand new, just formed Detectives Alliance with Kylan and with Derek X? Why, yes, they are. But Claire, I think, is the one that eventually says, look, we've got the detectives, but we really don't really have that. We have each other, and that's it, Tiffany. And so even though they're part of this new alliance, they're still very concerned about Kylan and his power. And they're saying they need to talk to Derek X and make sure Derek X realizes that even if he made it to the final two with Kylan, there's not a chance he's winning. And so he doesn't need to be hanging his hat too much with Kylan just yet, because it's not going to do well for him if he does. So they are very worried about Kylan and the power he has and the number of people he has working with him. So again, Derek X potentially is a power, even though he's part of the alliance too, or Sarah Beth. They mentioned both of them. Tiffany is also worried that when the guys start going after women, again, we've had only guys so far, and she's saying, look, once they kind of switch and they start going after the girls, Claire, I think you may be target number one. So we've got to watch out for that. And Claire says, no, I agree. I think I easily could be a target, and I think she probably could be. Brent walks in at that point and is talking to the two of them, and he's saying, man, it is going to be so funny seeing people's faces when I stay, and it's going to go down in Big Brother history, watching everyone so surprised when I stay. Well, I know who I want the cameras trained on when Julie Chen announces the landslide vote tomorrow night in the eviction. And funny, I don't know if that's the right word. There's certainly going to be some a shocked person or two, right? Probably just one. All right, let's see. Brittany is talking to Alyssa and Christian. She's worried about being on the block. Imagine that. Brittany's nervous about being on the block. She's worried about being on the block. Christian and Alyssa are trying to calm her down, saying, yeah, you're good, you're fine. But one thing that is interesting for Brittany, she's wondering if maybe should she gun for the HOH this week, or should she just lay low? I think the term she used was just hide under her blanket and not try to take control of the house. And that's a good question. It truly is. To some degree, I've never been a huge advocate of throwing HOHs, but to some degree, maybe it makes more sense strategically if Brittany doesn't win HOH this week, because I don't think she would be on the block or a target for the third week in a row. I expect it to be Team Aces much more than someone on Team Jokers. So strategically, maybe it makes sense. But as a viewer, I would love to see a Brittany HOH. That could be all kinds of fireworks and all kinds of interesting things happening in a week like that. So from a personal selfish standpoint, Brittany, go for the HOH, and let's see if you can take this thing and make some fireworks happen. We do have a little bit later a continuing discussion between Tiffany and Claire. They moved it to, I don't remember where they were at this point. But a long discussion between Tiffany and Claire. They're looking at all kinds of different scenarios, and I'm not going to try to cover them all right now. But some of the takeaways, Whitney and Hannah are both considered expandable by Claire and Tiffany. They think that Sarah Beth is tight, or they don't think that Sarah Beth is that tight with her teammates Christian and Alyssa. They think that Azah and Brittany will protect them, being Claire and Tiffany, will be protected by Azah and Brittany. And then a final thing that's kind of interesting, Tiffany is remembering that Frenchie said, watch out for Hannah. Be careful around Hannah. And now they're saying, well, maybe Frenchie was right. Maybe we really do need to be concerned with Hannah. So we've had a few people that are getting nervous about Hannah and how she's playing the game, and because she's smart, because she's sketchy. We've heard a lot of adjectives used, but a few different groups that maybe are starting to see Hannah as a good potential early target coming up. Now we had this whole conversation, most interesting thing I heard perhaps was a slightly different scenario that Tiffany brought up. She was saying, we've got these teams, we've got these big alliances, but really, what if we went slightly different? What if we made this a game about the duos? She said, we could have 4 duos, an alliance of 8. I don't want to hear about 4 duos working together in a maybe we'll just call them the Grateful Eight, right? Yeah, that kind of brings back some unpleasant memories for me. But Tiffany is saying, look, we could potentially have 4 duos working together. You and me as duo number 1, Hannah and Derek X, is a duo. Christian and Alyssa is a duo, and Brittany and Azza is a duo. And basically, we would have 2 people from each team. That's 8 people. We could work together, get rid of everyone else, and we could be the final 8. It's the first time I've kind of heard it phrased just like that. So Tiffany's thinking this may be a possibility to cover. And it's brought up again very slightly in the have not room. We've got Tiffany and Claire and Hannah and Whitney and Derek X, basically a lot of members of the Aces and the Queens. And Tiffany kind of tries to float this concept of duos out there of, hey, you know, maybe the idea of some duos is something we ought to consider. But it gets shut down pretty quick by Whitney. Because Whitney says, I don't want to mess with that. I think we need to focus everything we got on getting the Kings out first. We got to take care of the big, powerful team, the Kings, and then later we can do some other stuff. So Whitney kind of short circuits Tiffany's approach to the duos, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear that discussion over the next week again, and we'll see if it gets any traction or not. But Whitney is saying, now we got to get the Kings out. Not only that, but it really would be best if we let the Jokers win the HOH and let the Jokers take the shot. Aces and Queens, why don't we just sit back, let the Jokers take control? And you know, as long as the Kings are still in the HOH competition, we'll fight, we'll do what we can. And if we have to win, we will. But as soon as all the Kings are gone, if it's just us and the Jokers, let's just let the Jokers have it. And I understand her thought, and that's not a bad strategic concept. But again, it's going to depend on what type of HOH competition we get tomorrow night, whether that's a possibility and exactly how it works. I'm really curious to see what this HOH is going to be tomorrow. So there you have it, guys. Again, not any earth-shattering changes in perception or anything. Brent will still be going home tomorrow night. But people are certainly planning ahead and trying to figure out, and just a lot more talk about who may or may not want to win the HOH. So y'all have a great, what is today? Till Wednesday. Y'all have a fantastic Wednesday, guys. I will be back tomorrow night. We'll see what happens overnight as we get to the last minute campaigning, see if anything earth-shattering happens before the eviction tomorrow. So I'll see y'all again tomorrow morning. Have a great one. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.